Ryan Nobles, good morning. I think the president might very well have solved maybe the nuclear situation with North Korea. What do you think?
Well, I think we got a long way to go, Bill.
I'm just saying, he said everything's wonderful. They had a great meeting, probably the best ever, and looks like everything's good to go.
I mean, I do think that they're making progress, and he does deserve credit for making more progress than any previous president before him. The fact that his CIA director and quite possibly the next Secretary of State met face-to-face with Kim Jong-un, that's something that no previous administration has been able to do since this regime has been in power.
Right.
So they're at least making progress. The big question is what exactly is going to be on the table? What is the Kim regime willing to give up, and exactly what happens when they have this face-to-face meeting. Progress is one thing, but actually sealing the deal requires a lot more work, and they still have a long way to go in that respect.
Ryan Nobles from CNN, by the way. Ryan, what year do you think it was that Tom Brady threatened Stormy Daniels? Have you seen the sketch? It looks just like Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady.
It's Tom Brady?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, if you saw the report this morning, that he's maybe not going to play next year. Maybe that's why.
I did see that. That was pretty interesting, too.
I know the draft is coming up. We haven't done much football, but the beginning of the end is coming for that franchise, and that's got to be great news for you.
Well, we've been hearing that for a very long time.
Yeah.
Tom Brady skipped OTAs, which never happens. That's the type of thing Odell Beckham Jr. does. I mean, that's a sign.
I want to, first of all, I am worried that the Mets can't play in cold weather, or they've started to
They got that win. They got that huge winning margin. Like, oh my God, we're doing too well.
But Ryan is also, as well as a Mets fan, Ryan is a Buffalo Bills fan.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Right. So I've suffered a lot over the
past. A lot of suffering going on between the Mets and the Bills. Yeah. All right. How long before we're all going to be getting sick of Comey interviews? I mean, he's making the rounds here. He's making the rounds.
Yeah, no, I think you raise a good point. I mean, I think there is certainly the possibility that James Comey's overexposing himself here. There's no doubt that he's selling books. He wants to get as many of these purchased as possible, and he feels the more television interviews he does, the better. I thought that he was pretty forthcoming in the Stephanopoulos interview. They released all 5 hours of transcripts from that. I think the thing about Comey is, which I find most interesting about him is, if you were watching Twitter during the Stephanopoulos interview, there were just as many Democrats as Republicans hammering him. Many people that are connected to the Clinton campaign feel as though he really bungled that whole situation, and that's one of the reasons that she's not president. And, of course, Trump hates him, and Trump supporters hate him for another reason. So, while I don't think Comey's perfect here, and he admits that he's flawed, there's something to be said about the fact that he's taking arrows from both sides, which leads me to believe that he's at least somewhere close to being correct about this situation. Exactly, what role he's going to play as the special counsel investigation unfolds, that remains to be seen. But he's definitely become a divisive figure in this whole thing. And there's a possibility, as you mentioned, Bill, the more interviews he does, that could actually end up being helpful to Donald Trump because it gives him a foil and it gives him someone to attack.
He did say during the interview on the Late Show last night with Colbert that there's a lot he knows about Russia that's not in the book that he can't talk about and that will potentially be coming out. Is it anything? I mean, we don't know, right? We just don't know. Andrew feels it's going to end up getting leaked, but he's saying, no, I can't say a word, and that'll come out.
Yeah. He probably does know something, but my guess is that the investigation has gone so much further than where it was when he was involved in the investigation that he may understand kind of the beginnings of where they started. But, Mueller's gone down a rabbit hole here that's now led to Michael Cohen, that's led to Stormy Daniels, that led to all these other areas. So while I'm sure that James Comey knows a lot more about this than we do, he doesn't know as much as Robert Mueller does. Yeah. And I think that even Comey's perspective on this doesn't matter nearly as much as Mueller. And obviously Mueller has a completely different tack than that Comey, while Comey's doing every interview possible, we never hear from Robert Mueller, and I don't imagine we will until he decides this investigation is over.
How about and explain in a nutshell, if you could, the Hannity involvement, what all of this means, and why should Hannity be involved here?
Well, I think the biggest thing about Hannity's involvement in it is I think that if you're a Fox News viewer, you have got to have a greater understanding as to just how intertwined Hannity is personally with Trump world. And the fact that, Michael Cohen basically had three clients, one was the president, one was a Republican donor, and the other was Sean Hannity. It shows you just how close that Sean Hannity is to Donald Trump. This is more than just a reporter covering the administration. There's a Washington Post story this morning that talks about how often the president and Sean Hannity are in having conversations and talking. So when you watch the Sean Hannity program, and a lot of people do, it's number one in its time frame. You're basically getting the talking points of the White House, and that's a two-way street. Sometimes those talking points are generated from Sean Hannity. Sometimes they're generated from the White House, but don't, live under any type of an illusion that you're getting an objective viewpoint as to how the administration is operating.
So, and that I get, and I think it's the listener or the viewer's responsibility to understand the source of whatever you're listening to or watching or reading. I'm not sure we're all that good at that, but it is our responsibility. So, Okay, I get it. It doesn't look good. It's not kosher, maybe. It's a little odd to think that a radio host or TV host would have this type of influence. But where's the illegality? Where's the crime here?
Yeah, well, I don't know if there necessarily is a crime. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but my guess is that you could perhaps make an obstruction of justice case if it's combined with a bunch of other points, to show that the president is using one of the most powerful figures in media to basically undermine the Robert Mueller investigation. Sean Hannity has said on his program that Mueller is part of a deep state crime family. And so when maybe that unto itself is not illegal, but when then you add into it that the president fired James Comey, that he is threatening to fire Robert Mueller, that they're doing things to systematically undermine this investigation, maybe that plays into it. And if there's a coordinated effort there, a conspiracy between Hannity and the president to make that kind of coordinated effort to do something, then perhaps you have a crime. I don't necessarily know if it reaches that level. I mean, that's just a theory. I think the bigger problem here is that Sean Hannity has gone on television for the past year and a half and parroted all the president's thoughts and has held up the president's point of view and his agenda on this very popular television show, and didn't disclose the fact that he had a legal connection to the president through the same attorney. You're just not getting the full story there.
It's a credibility issue.
It's definitely a credibility issue.
Credibility. And, and it goes
I
to all of that.
I don't deny that. Where is the? I'm not sure there's obstruction. I mean, presidents for years have used the media and leaked things to the media, gotten the stuff out that they want. At one point, it looked like I think during the Bush administration they were putting out press releases as if they were actual news stories, and it was actually the Bush campaign. They were stories that were pro-Bush that were being put out, and newspapers and TV and radio around the country were just ripping and reading or copying and pasting.
I agree with that. And I mean, I also think that there probably weren't too many people surprised to see that Sean Hannity has this close of a relationship with the Trump White House. And I agree with you, Bill. And I actually think that perhaps that story was blown out of proportion in terms of its importance in this entire investigation and in this entire story because of who Sean Hannity is. He's a celebrity. He is an enormous public figure. And it was just interesting that he had this connection. I don't necessarily think it rises to the level of a legal problem for the president, but it just shows that this is one of the main characters in this drama, and that connection is even stronger than we thought it was before. And I think it's noteworthy. It's something that we need to be aware of.
Yeah.
But if this isn't the card that's being pulled out from the bottom of the house that's going to allow the whole thing to collapse. I don't think it's that important.
Either way, this is just there's just a lot of crazy. It seems to get crazier every day that goes on. Who'd have thought that Hannity would be involved in all of this in some way? It's just crazy.
Right.
All right, Ryan, interesting stuff. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Ryan Nobles from CNN.